Thank you. Well, I got to tell you, it is always good to get back to the great Republic of Texas, otherwise known as America. Yeah. So, how many parents in the room today? See your hands? Yeah. So my wife Stacy and I have 3 kids, and we're in this season of life where it feels like our number one role as parents are as Uber drivers to our kids' friends' birthday parties. You feel me, don't you? It's like there's 2 and 3 birthday parties every weekend. We have our own line item in the budget now. And it's getting ridiculous. And there are the times where it's a real nice break from the rhythm of birthday parties where I just drop the kids off. But there's some times where the parents have to go, you know what I mean? And these would be your neighbors. So I've gotten to know a neighbor of mine by the name of Al, really nice guy, one of the nicest guys on the planet. And most of my conversations and interactions with Al are at kids' birthday parties in our neighborhood. And so over those, couple of years we've been doing this, I know that Al is a very successful accountant for a large healthcare organization in Nashville. And they do well, but we've never had a deep dive. And so it was just a few months ago. I see Al at a birthday party. And as I said, Al's one of the nicest guys on the planet. And my previous impression of Al is he just always has a smile on his face. And so he and I happened to find ourselves in a corner of the living room, watching all the stuff happen, and we started conversing, and we're talking college football, we're talking about the kids, and then at some point in the conversation, I say to Al, how's work going? And Al's smile turned into a grimace. And I was just asking a general question. I'm just trying to keep the conversation going. And Al says, well, Ken, it's a good job. I make decent money. But to be honest with you, it's the same old. And, the weeks are getting longer and longer and longer. And by the time he finishes that sentence, this is a completely different Al. So I immediately dive in. I'm going to go a little Ken Coleman show on him and ask a question. I said, well, is it bad leader? No, not a bad leader. Bad culture? No, the culture's fine. Difficult people you work with? No, everybody's cool. I just don't like what I do. I say, well, why did you get into accounting? He said, I was always good at mathematics, good with numbers, problem solving came easy to me. My dad is a certified public accountant, and when it came time to go to school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my dad said, hey son, a smart decision would be to go into accounting. So that's what I did. I went to school, got good grades, got the major, got into the industry, and here Al is 20 plus years later, absolutely miserable. So then I flipped it on him. I said, well, I'm just curious. If you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you do? And he immediately started to brighten up and he said, well, I've always enjoyed working with my hands. I've always had a knack for building stuff, fixing stuff. I do some stuff around the house. It feels like every weekend I've got a power saw out. I'm doing something. I'm remodeling something. I've started doing a few projects for some of our neighbors. I just really enjoy it. And I said to Al, well, what if you could do remodels all day, every day? You just had your own small business. That's what you did. And his smile comes back and he looks at me and goes, Ken, that would be great. And I said, so why won't you do that? And here it comes. The defeat, the resignation to his reality is, and he looked at me and he said, Ken, I'm stuck. I got the mortgage, I got the 4 kids, I got the 401k at this company. I'm stuck. I don't think I can bridge that gap. So about the time I'm really ready to dive in, birthday party comes together and we sing happy birthday, we get interrupted, and I haven't seen Al since that birthday party. But the reality is that Al is not alone. Sadly, 70% of Americans, according to a 2017 Gallup poll, 70% of Americans are disengaged at work to the point that they are miserable. They can't stand going in, but they go in because, like Al, they have to, and they feel stuck. Add to this, we know from data that the average American spends over 90,000 hours at work in their lifetime. Folks, I don't think I have to convince anybody of this truth. Life is way too short, way too precious to spend your life dragging yourself into the office on Monday and focusing on anything you could do to make it through to Friday afternoon. And I'm not going to stand idly by, because here's the reality. Every person on this planet was created by the Creator on purpose to fulfill a unique role. You know this. Deep down inside of your soul, you know this. We long for meaning. The great psychologist Viktor Frankl writes all about this idea that if a person doesn't have a purpose when they go into work, it affects their mental health. Folks, prison camps, concentration camps, they would torture prisoners psychologically by making them take one pile of bricks, move it to this side of the camp one day, the next day, make them move it over here. There is a real mental effect, a mental health issue, when you no longer see meaning in your work for you personally. Here's the progression. My work doesn't matter to me. Next step in your mind, my work doesn't matter to anybody else. And then over time, it slips into the very dangerous place of, I don't matter. Men and women, we were created to work. If you've never darkened the door of a church, test me on this. Go read Genesis. We were created to work. So back to my belief, and I know you know this to be true, if in fact, and we believe this at the Ken Coleman Show and at Ramsey Solutions, everyone on this planet was created to fill a unique role. That means it is needed, and that also means that you must do it. You must do it. Simply put, somebody out there needs you to be you, the you that you were created to be. And if you're not gonna be that, the world is not the best it can be. This has nothing to do with fame. This has nothing to do with fortune. This has nothing to do with power. This has to do with purpose. So today, I'm gonna walk you through a very simple process to a big complex question that everybody asks. Why am I here? Every human being on the planet wrestles with this, so you must answer it. Why am I here? Now, big question, has a lot of fear attached to it, a lot of complexity, but it is actually a simple process that everyone can use to figure it out. Now, we talked about Al being stuck, and I know that hits home with a lot of you. I'm not gonna ask you to raise your hands, but we know from that data that this arena is full of people who feel stuck in their job. By the way, Dave and I were talking about this recently during a commercial break when I was a guest on his show. Dave looked at me, he said, we were talking about what we had just been talking about how when you work in your area of passion, you make more money. We've seen this time after time. How many of you have watched a few debt-free screams or heard a few debt-free screams? Have you noticed that when Dave walks them through the progression, that almost every time they end up making more money, because Dave asked him, how much money did you make when you started, right? And then he says, how much money are you making now? And almost every time we see an increase. Why? Purpose. They're on purpose. They are going towards the finish line of becoming debt-free. It is a laser focus, and that purpose is driving their behaviors, right? And when we are motivated and moving towards something that we have tremendous personal belief in and conviction, then it raises our game. So when you are doing work that you were created to do, you're gonna make plenty of money because you're not driven by the numbers, you're driven by the results, the tremendous meaning. That's why I was so excited to see the research from Chris's book, Everyday Millionaire. Teachers, one of the top 3 groups of everyday millionaires. These are people that are on purpose, and yet they're millionaires. So this makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm gonna walk you through this, but here's what I want to acknowledge. In this room, there are a lot of people who are doing the work you were created to do. Don't check out on me, because here's what's true. You're parents of kids that have no idea what God created them to do, and they're leaning on you for that. You work with people who aren't in the right spot. You have friends and family who aren't doing what they're supposed to do. This is super, super helpful, so don't check out. Okay, here we go. I want to take you to where all this comes from. Where does the philosophy methodology come from? So I'm in my early 20s, and I was stuck. I was in a good gig. It had some upward mobility, but it just wasn't passion driven for me. It was just a good gig. I was good at it, but it just wasn't clicking. And so I had a mentor, fortunately, who lived in the Houston, Texas area, and he came to Nashville, and we had coffee, and I was just griping and complaining, and just miserable 20-something. I want it now, and why can't I have it now? You know, all that kind of stuff. And a wise mentor as he was, he let me finish with my complaints and all that stuff. And he looked at me, he said, Ken, he said, you need to relax. He said, to figure out your future, it's a very simple process. He had a coffee cup on a little cocktail napkin that looked like this. And he started drawing on it. And so he drew on it and he said, so what we got here is, this is your talent line. And this line here is your passion line. Talent's what you do best. Passion's what you love to do most. And he said, all you got to do is begin to go through a process of self-discovery, self-awareness, and truly not only discover, but then begin to believe, what do you do best? And when you figure that out, you plot that out, and literally just right up there, so communication and whatever it is, just plot it out. He said, do the same thing on the passion side. He said, take some time with this. And he said, after you walk through this and you get all this identified, let me look at the list, go talk to a few other people, let's figure this thing out. And let's get really clear on who you really are. And he said, then you're gonna be able to find your sweet spot where your greatest talent and your greatest passion intersect. In other words, as I tell the callers on my show, we're trying to figure out what you do best and how you can use the talent, what you do best, to do what you love to do most. So this is the process. You ready to go? You ready to write? Everyone is born with talent, everybody. There are a lot of people who call the show, there are a lot of people in this room today who quite frankly feel like, Ken, I don't do anything good. I wouldn't say that I'm very talented. That's a lie from the pit of hell. It's not true. Everybody was born with some talent. So how do we begin to uncover our heart and clear our mind and truly get self-aware? Couple questions, 3 questions to truly discover your talent. The first question is, what tasks are naturally easy for me? What tasks are just naturally easy for me? Allow your brain to run for a little bit. Go back. When you were at school, you did things very easily, but you saw your classmates struggle a little bit. Okay? These are tasks that just come easy for you. Number 2, what functions do I perform well? Now, these are just real functions. I'm just really good at it. So Al is really good at numbers, but I remember taking you back to that conversation with Al. At one point, I laughingly said to him, I said, hey, so you really don't enjoy it? Is like the spreadsheet sucking your soul right out of you, right into the monitor? He goes, yeah, actually it is. I was like, oh. How many of you have been there? Right here. Come on. All around the room. Raise your hand. These people are crazy. Just raise your hand. Ain't nobody to be ashamed of. Raise your hand. You've been there or you're there. You go in and you got to motivate yourself to walk in on Monday morning, and by Tuesday afternoon, you feel like your soul has been sucked into oblivion. It's real. Last question. What work do others compliment me on? What do people compliment me on? You've got to step out of this defeated mindset and say, what do people compliment me on? Because if you are paying attention, even in your workplace right now, if you feel stuck, people are still saying, hey, you did a good job on that. You're really good at that. You've got to be able to truly identify, hey, you know what? No matter what negative people have been in my life, no matter what circumstances have come my way, the fact of the matter is, yes, I do have talent and I know what they are. Now, this is really important for understanding that formula on the napkin, the sweet spot. Talent is not enough. Doing what you're good at is not enough. Al is an example. Here's another one. I had a lady call into my show the other day, And she said, Ken, I need your help. I'm stuck. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing right now? She says, I'm in pharmaceutical sales. I said, great, how much do you make? She said, well, last year I made $350,000. I know, right? I almost said, I'm sorry? You broke up. But I didn't, so I dove a little deeper. Long story very short, she went on to reveal that she's just always been really good at selling stuff, always. Even as a kid, she just can sell anything. And so she moves her way through the corporate sales world, gets a chance about 8 years ago to get into pharmaceutical sales. She chases the dollar sign, she's killing it. But she's calling me because she really wants to start her own business. And she needed permission for me to say, it's okay. Why did she call for that? I'm gonna tell you why, and don't fall into the talent trap. She called to ask permission, essentially, to chase what she really loves, because you know it and I know it. Everybody in her life had either put pressure on her to say, are you nuts? Why would you leave this cush job and all the things that come with that $350,000 salary to pursue what you love? When I know that this woman's gonna make way more than $350,000 because she knew exactly what business she wanted to start, why she wanted to start it, and she's gonna use the talent that she has in sales and she's gonna apply it to a mission behind a company that she wants to start. That is the sweet spot. She uses her talent to do what she loves to do most, completely different business. She's gonna be wildly successful as an entrepreneur. Now, let's move to passion. This is the one that most people get hung up on when they call my show. Ken, I don't know what I'm passionate about. It's really hard to admit this. My friend Les Parrott's over there, and he could tell us a little bit more as to why people really struggle with this, but I think it's a very intimate thing to try to reveal. Now, this is what I would love to do most. And as I find talking to callers, it's usually tied to the fact that you don't think it's smart. You don't think it's smart to pursue this. Remember Al's story, rather? So Al's dad suggested, hey, I think it would be a smart decision for you to go into accounting. Good pay, good benefits, you're good at it. This is the smart decision. And well-meaning parents are doing this every day. If you're not careful, parents, you're doing that to your own kids. And they're gonna call my show 20 years from now, and they're gonna say, Ken, I did this because my mom and dad said it was a smart decision. And I hate it. Now, how do we discover passion? 3 questions. Who do I want to help? Start to see their face, see their problem, see their situation, because there's a connection when you really let this question resonate and just kind of rumble around in your heart. Your brain will begin to identify it and see it if you continue to ask it. Who do I most want to help? Second question, very similar. It's going to help unlock your brain. What problem do I most want to solve? What problem do I most want to solve? I'm finding in a year and a half that most people's passion comes from some level of pain. From great pain many times, not always, but from great pain comes great passion, or from great burden. It doesn't have to be a personal pain that somebody inflicted on you, but maybe you've seen someone that you love dearly deal with a burden, and there's a connection and it's visceral in your heart. You go, I want to help other people deal with that problem, or I want to help other people avoid the problem. There's this guy named Dave Ramsey that you're all familiar with, yes? You've heard Dave tell his story. He's in the shower, he's told that story. He can't believe what's happened. His world has collapsed. And he comes out of that situation and says, no more. Not for Dave Ramsey, not for my family, and not for as many people as I can get a hold of. I don't want any other people or anybody to go through what I went through. And here he is 27 years later. Folks, are you tracking with me? When we use our talent to perform our passion, we are on purpose and will be fulfilled and will make greater change than we can even imagine. Now, let's be careful. There's a movement out there, a lot of people, a lot of motivational people saying, chase your passion, do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. Can I free your mind today? That is absolute crap. It's motivational gibberish. You have to have talent. You have to have talent. You can be passionate about something, and suck. This is my golf game. I'm serious, I love the game of golf. I love everything about it, but I'm terrible. I'm absolutely awful compared to good golfers. Terrible. We saw this come to life on American Idol, right? You're laughing, you remember. Oh, I just want to be famous. I love music, it's all I ever think about. And they get out there and it sounds like they're killing a goose. And then the judges, the experts, people who know their business say to them, hey kid, you're awful, you're dreadful. And then what happens? The kid gets mad. What are you, nuts? You people don't know anything. You'll see me one day. Yeah, we will. In some documentary or some news story in broken devastation. If you live your life chasing passion that's based on nothing more than some thought in your mind of what you want to be, but you don't have the talent to pull it off, and more importantly than talent, conviction to do it, you are going to be very miserable, I promise. Passion is not enough. Let me pick on myself some more. There's nothing in the world that I'm more passionate about outside of my family, my faith, my work than basketball. I just love basketball. I don't know why, but I just always loved the game of basketball from a little bitty guy. My dad used to say he was born with a basketball in his hands. You know, I just always loved the game of basketball, but look at me, please, just look at me for a second. I'm 5'9" with these boots on, and I can't jump over a slip of paper. I can't be a professional basketball player. Why? Because I don't have the physical, athletic talent to pull it off. So it's not this honorable position to charge passion and not have talent. The sweet spot is at the intersection of your greatest talent and greatest passion. My favorite professional story of this, I was watching Oprah Winfrey's show one day. Any guys like Oprah in the house? More guys than just admitted do. We could meet on the concourse and exchange man cards. Oprah rocks. I'm watching Oprah one time, and she's talking to David Copperfield. David Copperfield is one of the most successful entertainers in the history of the world. History of the world. She said to him, how did you figure out that you were going to do magic? He said, very simple. I'm giving you the short version. When I was a kid, my mom and dad took me to New York City. I walked in a magic shop, was really interested in all the tricks and the things that they were doing. The guys behind the counter, my mom and dad bought it. I took it home, started practicing it, realized I was pretty good at it, and I started performing more and more and more and got some acclaim. He said, but then I'm about 16, 17 years old, and I've now gotten some national awareness. And I realized, simply put, that I love stories more than anything. Old movies, novels. And he said, I figured out one day I want to use my talent of magic and illusions to tell stories. Now he's one of the most successful entertainers in history. That's how it works. So that's the discovery process. Now let's move to how do we get there? Because this is the scary part. It's full of fear and good news. Christy Wright's going to be up here a little later today, going to give a world-class talk on how to stare fear in the face and overcome it. But you're going to face fear here. How do we get where we want to be once I get clear on what Mount Everest is, where I want to go? I know this is my purpose. How do I get there? This is so simple. You ready? It's called the proximity principle. In order to do what you want to do, you've got to be around people that are doing it and in places where it is happening. I don't care what industry. Let me say it again. I want you to really grab this. In order to do what you want to do, as you begin to start, as you step out and you stay on the path, you must constantly be around people that are doing what you want to do and in places where what you want to do is happening. So let's look at people. Who do I need to be around? What types of people that I need to be around? One is a professor. This is just somebody who can teach you the basic fundamentals of what you need to know. If you're moving into a new industry, you've got to get qualified. There is some knowledge that is required. And I'm not talking about always in a school setting. If you want to get into the trades, you need to get around somebody who is really good at their job. Maybe they have a trade school, and they're willing to just teach you a little bit. They'll have coffee with you, lunch with you, and say, hey, here would be the path. This is what I would tell somebody to do to get where I'm at. So it doesn't have to be a traditional educational setting, but we have to identify what do we need to know to get where we want to go, and we got to find people who could teach us. Another person that you need to be around is a professional. These are the best of the best in their craft. This could be in your zip code locally, or like I studied early on in my journey, I watched every Larry King episode there ever was. My wife bought me the box set, I still have it at home, of every episode of Larry King Live. I've watched them all. I would watch Bob Costas, Charlie Rose. I'd watch David Frost from the old days. I watched the David Frost interview with Richard Nixon. I studied the guys that I thought were the best interviewers and broadcasters in the business. I never talked to them personally, but I studied them and I learned from them. That's the professional. Another is a producer. This is simply put the people that are hiring people in your field, the fields you want to be in. You need to be around those people. Let them know, hey, I want to be here. I'm doing what I need to do. Just want you to know I'm here. You know, hey, I'm qualified. I got my qualifications. You need to be around people that are hiring you, what you want to be. You got to be around them. Be in their face all the time, following up, checking in. You need to be around peers that will lift you. Peers that will lift you. So many motivational heroes from the past have said that you are the average of the 5 people you're closest to. This really is true. You need to be around peers who push you and pull you. By their example, they'll push you and say, you're not where you need to be, you're complaining, you're slacking off, you're making excuses, you're insecure. And you need to have somebody who, by their own example, they're out there going after it and killing it, and they will pull you along. You're hanging out with eagles, as Dave Ramsey says, you're gonna have a chance to become an eagle. And then lastly, a mentor. Somebody with some age, somebody with some life experience, somebody who has some wisdom. Wisdom and experience are your 2 key attributes you're looking for. And then they're gonna care for you. You're gonna check in with them on a regular basis, and they're gonna help you along with your progress. They're gonna help you when you're weak. They're gonna keep you accountable, keep you on target. Everybody needs a good mentor. Have several mentors, several areas of your life. Stacy and I had marriage mentors for a long time. We'd go to dinner with this couple, and we would just be gut level honest, and we'd tell them what we were struggling with, and they'd always laugh knowingly, look at us and say, well, we've been there. Here's what's worked for us. Here's a good book, things like that. You need to have a financial mentor, somebody who's out there. You're hearing some great stuff from Dave and Chris and Ramsey Solutions. Have somebody in your life that's where you want to be. That accountability, that encouragement. This really works. We had a caller call in recently, and I had talked about the proximity principle on the show. The guy called me, I pick up the phone, he says, hey, Ken, I'm just calling to tell you that the proximity principle works. I said, well, that's good. And I said, well, how's it work for you? He said, well, I've been listening to you talking about it, and I am in insurance. I want to move into the tech space. I've always been technology savvy. I've got the skills, been taking some classes on the side, but I've been scared to make the jump. And he said, the proximity principle helped me realize it's not a jump, it's a gradual stepping forward on purpose, intentionality. He said, I realized I had a neighbor. He said, you were talking about the professionals as one of the people that I need to meet with. And I realized I got a neighbor 4 houses down. We know each other, we don't know each other very well. And so I reached out to him on email. He's the CEO of a local technology company. And he said, I did exactly what you told me to do, which is not ask for a job, but ask for coffee. He asks this guy to coffee, takes the guy to coffee, and he says, here's the deal. Here's where I am right now. Here's where I want to be. I've asked you to have coffee with me because I want your personal advice from your journey. What would you tell me I need to do to get into your industry? Can I let you in on a secret? Really successful people like when you ask them those kinds of questions. No, they do. It seems intimidating, and I understand that. But they want someone who has some intentional questions, who won't waste their time, and they feel like they're passing something on. So don't be afraid to sit down with those folks. He does. They have a great lunch. He gets a bunch of things to do. He filled up a notepad, and he goes on and does it. He's working his way on that list and on the path. He gets a email from this guy about 8 weeks later, and the guy says, hey, I just approved a job hire in my company that I think you're a good fit for. You want to come in and apply? He says, of course. He goes in, he applies, he gets the job. Is it going to happen that way every time? Not necessarily. But when you practice the proximity principle and you put yourself around those right people, you're going to have opportunity. Places. You want to be in a place where you can do three things. Learn, do, connect. Learn, do, connect. Learn, do, connect. We've got to stop making the journey to the dream job so dadgum complex. Learn, do, connect. Put yourself in places where you can learn, do, connect. Early in my broadcasting journey, folks, I want you to know I'm 31 years old. I don't have a degree in broadcasting. Here's a little secret. I don't even have a degree. Come on. Come on. So I know that I've got to do this. I got to get somewhere where I can learn something about broadcasting. I don't know jack. So I signed up for a broadcasting school, having no idea I was the first person to ever sign up for this guy's class. He's the local TV producer. I didn't do my homework. I just saw an ad. I clicked on it, went to his website. It looked trustworthy. Called the guy on the phone, had a good conversation, signed up. And first day I walk in. And I'm 31 at this time, and it's a bunch of 20-year-old guys, about 8 or 9 kids, and they look like they're 16. I walk into this room, and I'll never forget it. I'm fired up to learn. I'm on the journey. I walk in, and I start talking with these guys, and I say to one guy, hey, man, you excited about this? He goes, yes, sir. I didn't know if he was being polite or if he was practicing some ageism. Keep talking to a couple of guys, and one bright young guy warms up and says, how long you been an instructor in this course? I got to tell you, that affected me. I remember going home that night telling Stacy, have I lost my mind? Please tell me I've not lost my mind. I'm in there with a bunch of 20-year-old kids. I'm a 31-year-old guy. This is a long journey, and I don't even see the end of it. But I put myself in places time after time after time where I was learning broadcasting, where I got to do a little bit of broadcasting, a little bit more. And by the way, when you're in a place where you're learning and doing, guess what happens? You connect. When I'm around the right people, they show me the right places. They open doors for me to get in the right places. When I step into the right places with some courage, I meet the right people. And it's just a cycle. It's just a cycle. So, in quick review, you've got to do the discovery process. I've walked you through the simple process. Get some feedback from people who know you well and tell you the truth. Make sure you're not delusional like the kid on American Idol. Okay? We have a little purpose sentence right there in your notes. I'd get a pencil and I would use a pencil and fill in those blanks and do it day after day. I'm going to use my talents of blank, blank, blank to do blank, the work that brings me great joy. Write it in pencil. Here's why. You're going to be free. Just write it and erase it the next day and keep writing it and keep erasing it, keep writing and keep erasing it. Here's what we know from psychology studies. The things we focus on, we begin to see. How many of you have ever bought a car and on the way home you see that car 7 times and you've never seen it before? Why? Because now you're focused on that car. You just been on the lot and you see it and you love it and I want to buy it. And all of a sudden you never even noticed it before. The things we focus on, we begin to see more and more of. This process works. It is simple, but it takes time and it takes the diligence to be honest. So if you discover who you really are and what you really want to do, and then you put yourself in proximity, there's coming a day where you're going to step into that sweet spot and you're going to do work that matters greatly to you and makes a huge significance. I say this at the end of every show, and I mean it. I pored over it for hours before I wrote it. From the bottom of my heart, you matter. You have what it takes. Press on.